Hello and welcome to the Book Show on Diversity TV. I'm Ava Colopy, a writer of fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. My Facebook and website are Ava Colopy Books. I'm here in rural Arkansas in the United States in a pleasant farmhouse where I get lots of space to myself when I need it. And I'm going to talk to you about a book called Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. This book is about how this particular doctor broke massive barriers by researching the organ that controls your personality and behavior, the brain. In the early days of his work, he was accused of being a quack doctor for proposing that people's behavior had more to do with their brain and whether or not it was functioning properly or had been damaged in some way than sort of touchy-feely interpretations. He got very scientific about it, in spite of the fact that he is also quite religious and a church-going Christian. So he would do a new type of imaging called SPECT scans to see if any part of a person's brain was not functioning properly. He would scan some brains that were the control image, and then he would scan other brains to see where head trauma or drug abuse or something had done some damage to some part of the brain. So this is a functional scan of the brain in motion. It is not like an X-ray, which is a fixed image. It shows the different parts as they are working away, as electrical energy is going through different parts of the brain. So he could see where there were blank spots where that electrical activity was not going through the brain. So some of the scans show that you could see parts of the brain were not functioning properly if they had less activity in parts of them. So in the pictures themselves, it looks like a dead zone in the brain, and it's not really a dead zone. Maybe blood is still getting into there, but the electrical activity that should be there is not there. And when he came up with this, it was very new idea, very new way of approaching it. So this approach, for example, when he had an otherwise rational patient who became obsessed with a man and began stalking him, instead of just looking at childhood issues or that kind of thing, what he did, instead of just focusing on the psychological and emotional, was he also focused on the physical, and he took a look at her brain and tried to see if any part of it was not functioning properly, and he found that it was basically imbalanced. So he worked with her to get it back into balance and get it, all of it functioning as correctly as possible. So one of the most compelling stories in this book is when he has the story of a young boy of about 10 who suddenly, for no apparent reason, who has not been through any particular traumas, has homicidal and suicidal ideation. And at the time, other people said, oh, the boy just needs counseling. And they also kind of wrote it off and thought he was overreacting when he got very upset about the situation. And he was very upset because, of course, that's bizarre that out of nowhere, this child wants to sometimes talk about hurting himself or hurting others. So he had to go to different people to finally get a proper diagnosis, and what he found was there was actually a tumor in the boy's brain that was pushing other parts of it into a wrong position. So over the course of several months, he got a brain surgeon who would take the tumor out, and they got the tumor out, and the boy went back to normal, and this homicidal and suicidal ideation nonsense absolutely stopped, and the boy was back to basically being a healthy, happy boy. And that was a part of what convinced him that what he was doing was the right work that he needed to do, and that the medical community needed his research. Because if they're going to say that, oh, just look at the emotions with the young man, when you're saying something can't be right here, this is not normal for a child who has not suffered a trauma or anything. So another area that this book focuses on is the effects on the brain damage of using drugs, especially consistently over many years of time. He talks about the damage done by cocaine and marijuana and other drugs, including excessive cigarette smoking, excessive consumption of caffeine, not in moderation, but excessive amounts. And I know for a lot of people this can be a very political issue, but these brain scans, like an x-ray, they don't lie. These drugs are very harmful to the brain, especially drugs like cocaine and marijuana and heroin. They are very damaging to the brain, regardless of people's political views or whether they like to face this reality or not. That's irrelevant to the facts. He also focuses on food choices and exercises and how those can improve brain functioning. And unlike a lot of psychiatrists, he doesn't just focus on taking pills. He finds most people are not willing to focus on the hard work of proper diet and exercise, but if a patient is against taking medication, he will work with them on just doing exercise and good diet and having that help to balance their brain out and improve their quality of lives in general. I strongly believe that a distilled version of the information contained in this book should be required learning for kids, especially because by the time they are teenagers, they won't listen anyway, generally speaking. With that thought, I will say it's a shame that this book did not include scans of people suffering from brain damage due to the later stages of HIV/AIDS and syphilis, which are sexually transmitted diseases, if you don't know. They literally rot your brain. This is truth. So that I would consider to be a great part of sex education, and that's exactly how this aunt does sex education, which is largely how my mother did it, which is put the so-called fear of God into you. She was very good about that with her sex education, and she would do that not with religion, but with medical scientific facts. She started this with us in the early 1990s. And back then, there were no medicines for HIV. So it was a death sentence. And everything she talked to us about, she would lecture us, and then it would all go back to, I can't control the decisions you'll make when you're a teenager and you've got the hormones. But if you do such and such and such, you will die of AIDS. Which I think is a good way to teach it, because you're not sugarcoating it. You're not hiding the facts from young people, and you are impressing upon them how serious these different decisions are that you make in your life and what the potential consequences are. So anyway, I highly recommend this book for anyone who wants to improve themselves or their life. It gives you such an excellent source of information and insight into what makes your brain work well and what destroys it and how you can avoid that. And that if you have damaged it with certain behaviors in the past, it has brain plasticity, so you can also improve your brain going forwards. It's not all permanent damage, and there are ways of helping your brain to recover. So getting a new qualification or a diet or moving to a new city or getting into a new relationship isn't going to make much of a difference in your life if you're not happy with things. Because if your brain still isn't functioning properly and it's stuck in its same bad habits and bad health, then you can't really change anything. So hopefully we can all read this book and improve ourselves. That would be the ideal scenario. And it is written by a doctor, but who's a psychiatrist, but it's not full of complicated medical jargon that you can't understand. And he isn't just one of those people who wants people taking pills. He's willing to work with healthy alternatives like diet and exercise. So that is what I have for you today. Thank you for watching the Book Show on Diversity TV. We will see you again next time.